Thank you for tuning in to Abundant Moments. I'm sitting out here by the pool, and I was just thinking about what a blessing it is to have a pool living here in Florida. And then my mind went back to thinking about water and the importance of water. And then I went to thinking about Jesus when he went to Samaria. He told his disciples one day, he said, I have to go to Samaria. And you have to realize that the Jews and the Samaritans didn't get along. They were prejudiced one against another, and we know that that's wrong. But Jesus told his disciples, I have to go to Samaria. And when he got there, there was a woman who was there at the well. Now, I want you to know the importance of wells, because without wells, we don't have water. But back in Jesus' day and in the Old Testament days, wells were so important that they would even name cities after them. And the Hebrew word for well was beer, B-E-E-R. And so we see cities named Beersheba and different things like this. And this would let people know when they were traveling that they could go there because there was water there. There was a well there. Therefore, they could replenish themselves and they could replenish their animals. Sort of like, we look for the gas stations when we're traveling. Well, they had to have a well so they could replenish their animals. Well, Jesus went to Samaria, and there was a woman there at the well, and she was there at noon. And it's a really interesting story. She was there at noon because nobody liked her because she had a bad lifestyle. So she would go there so people wouldn't make fun of her. Everybody else went early in the day, but she went at noon when it was hot, just to avoid the people. But the well she was at, the Bible lets us know, was Jacob's well. Well, when you look at that, you discover thousands of years before, Jacob had dug a well. And the well that he dug was still there in Jesus' day. And the well, they're about 90 feet deep. Wells were very exciting when they would have a well, when they would actually get water. They would have a big celebration. People got married at wells. People met at wells because everybody had to go to the well to get their water for the day for cleanliness purposes and for drinking and for whatever they needed it for. Everybody had to go to the well. Well, when Jesus met this woman, it's a wonderful story what happened with her, but I want to focus on the well. When he met her, it was at Jacob's well. And as I said, thousands of years before, Jacob had dug that well. His son redug the well. A well represents life. Water is life. We have to have water to live. And Jesus told that woman, he said, if you give me to drink, I'm going to give you living water. In other words, it was a spiritual application he was talking to her about. But it all happened there at that well that had been dug all the way back to Jacob, and then his son redug it. And the emphasis I want to make here today is what we do in our lives, the well that we have, the well of our salvation, accepting Jesus into our heart, that living water that Jesus was talking about there. We pass that down from generation to generation as we dig the well. Now, sometimes they would have to redig a well if things would happen and it would get clogged up, or sometimes in war times, people would go in, the enemy would go in 3 days ahead of the war, and they would stop up the well. They would put big boulders in there so the men would be dehydrated and they couldn't fight effectively. And that's what Satan tries to do to us. We have this well of living water on the inside of us, and he tries to put boulders in our well. Unforgiveness, bitterness, condemnation, guilt, all these things he tries to stop up our well of living water. But I challenge you today, if your well is stopped up, redig that well like Jacob's son did. And know this, your well will go from generation to generation. Jesus met that woman at the well, and when he did, Jacob had dug that thousands of years before. He used her to save an entire city at a well that was dug way before her time. So dig that well deep. And if you need to redig it. If you need to get out those boulders that somebody has thrown in there or you've allowed to get in there, the boulders of unbelief, doubt, guilt, whatever it is, get rid of those today. Redig that well and know that the well of your salvation is important not only to you, but to others. Thank you for tuning in.